What's up YouTube? Thanks for joining again. Today we're going to be working on finishing up our turbo install. So the main things that we got to focus on is the oil feed and the oil drain. So tune in and we're going to get started right away. Before we get into anything, I really need to finish cutting out basically our axis hole for the front of the engine. As a lot of you have mentioned, and as I noticed as well, is there's really no way to access the spark plugs. If I wanted to adjust the valve, if I need to adjust valve lash, which I probably will need to do, I can't really get the valve covers off how I currently have it cut. So we're gonna increase our section. The first thing I want to do though is lay down some cloth over this, because now that we have everything installed, I really want to avoid getting metal shavings into the motor or the turbo. Alright, so the first thing we're going to work on now is getting this intercooler out so we can work on the turbo drain. And to do the turbo drain, we're going to have to actually put in our AN fitting on the bottom. And now what we'll do is we'll take this drain off, and let's see where it is. So we'll take this drain off and replace it with this one. Alright, so we got the oil pan off the car, and our last thing here really for the turbo is going to be to mount this fitting onto the wing of the pan. We're going to mount it vertical and kind of just cross our fingers and hope for the best on this one, because it's kind of a new thing for us. So tune in. Alright, so we got the piece with the length we think we want. See? So what we're going to do now is tack it in and then just test fit it again. So this is where we're at now with the oil drain tacked in place. You can see we always kind of keep this downhill slope, and we'll end up using this fitting here to continue that downward motion. And yeah, just for reference, this is kind of like the back of the bug of the front of the engine, and this is the other side. So this will come up right between the downpipe and the turbo, or I should say the up pipe and the engine block. It'll come right between the up pipe and the engine block into the turbo. So now that we know it's in the right place, we'll finish weld it all around and call it done. So here we have our fitting finished welded on. I'm pretty happy with how it came out. It's not by any means the prettiest welds, but after we leak test it, hopefully we will have no issues holding oil, and that's all that really matters. So the next thing we need to do is clean out the pan, and then we can seal it up and put it back on the motor. Just give you a quick look of why it's so difficult to get this oil drain in here. You can see we actually just snake it around the heads and the block essentially. So now that we have it in place, we'll make our line up to the turbo, and then we should be all set with the oil drain. So unfortunately, when we put our oil drain in, we were actually hitting on this inside corner. So what we're gonna have to do is cut it out, and I'm hoping I can just put it back in basically a little bit further back to reinforce it again. So now I'm gonna test fit it and make sure the oil drain fits. And if everything's good, we'll fill this in, and we will create the drain hose. So it ended up taking a lot of mucking around with the turbo fitting, the drain right here you can see, between shifting it where it can actually sit on the turbo and trying to get as straight a line as possible to our drain to the oil pan right here. So now that we finally have these in line with each other, we'll make this quick little 4-inch drain line and we will be good to go. Alright, so now that we have the turbo location and we have the oil drain installed, we're able to make the drain line. And I'm not going to do a really in-depth video right now on making the AN lines, but if you want to watch that, right here, I'll put the link for our EFI video, which I show a little bit more information on how to make the AN lines. But what I did want to show you, just because this is a bigger fitting, this is a 10 AN versus the 6 AN that I use on the fuel lines, it's just a little easier to see the components. So what you have, this is basically like the backing nut, and you have a ferrule that actually goes around the hose, and you can see there's actually, if I can try to help you guys out just for reference, you can see here, let's see, so you can see here there's actually a lip to it, so you push the hose all the way into the lip, and then you're going to put this in to essentially trap the rubber hose between the two components, and then you tighten the back nut on, which clamps the rubber hose between the ferrule and I guess this like neck to it. So that's kind of like the biology of it. Now we're just gonna, we only have one hose to make, and it's only about 6 inches long at the absolute most. So we're gonna make it real quick and move on.
Alright, so we did everything we needed to modify the pan, and we even, real quickly, just put a little extra paint on where we welded just to make sure that nothing rusted. So that's all set there. So now what we need to do is we need to apply our ultra gray Permatex. Usually you would use like Fuji Bond or Honda Bond. This is the closest equivalent that I have off the shelf. I did have some Fuji Bond, but unfortunately it's been sitting for so long that it's just gone old. So we're going to apply this to the inner perimeter of the whole pan and install it in its spot. Alright, now while we wait for that Permatex to set, we're going to add our drain line to the turbo and also just finish working on our turbo up-pipe bracket. So here you can see the cutout that we had to make and reinforce. And this is just so that basically the turbo drain line can fit down there. And again, it's not the prettiest thing, but it sure as hell will hold, so that's all that matters for us. So now all we have to do is just kind of get everything back on the engine and install the turbo feed and the turbo drain, and we'll be all set with the turbo plumbing.
So you can see, now we have the turbo installed with the bracket. We have our drain line. As you can see, I might have actually made the line slightly too long because we're just barely off right here. So I think off camera, I'm just going to create a new line real quick to make the right length. But other than that, all we need to do now is connect the turbo oil feed, which you can see right here. We've already installed a T-fitting that has our oil pressure sensor, and we will put our turbo oil feed right here and go over into the back of the turbo, or to the top of the turbo.
So for now, all we'll do is install the feed line because it seems like the turbo is going to come out again to correct that drain line. So that's what we'll kind of finish off today's video with. And I'm using this seal and lock from Permatex. I'm not exactly sure how great it works because I haven't had a chance to use it. It seems like it's staying soft though, unfortunately, but I did put it on in the cooler climate. So this will be the real test to see how good it is. Alright, so that's where we're going to end the video for today. Unfortunately, we're hoping to do the PCV plumbing and the coolant to the turbo, but just because of shipping and because of the virus, a lot of stuff hasn't come in yet. So rather than have this video drag on for a couple weeks, we're going to end it here. Just for a quick recap, what we did today was we added our oil drain to the oil pan, we created our oil drain line, and we routed our oil feed to the turbo. From there, really all we need for the turbo is the coolant lines, which I'll show you right here. I actually prematurely purchased this expansion tank, which is used on stock WRXs and STIs. So this will probably be how we mate into our coolant system for the turbo. And then other than that, once we have the turbo plumbed in, we're going to go straight into wiring, and from there, we're going to get a fire up very soon, hopefully in the next couple weeks. So if you liked what you saw, subscribe for more. We've noticed that over 90% of our viewers are actually not subscribed, so please hit the subscribe button. It really helps us. The other thing I forgot is that we still need to run our vacuum lines, and my goal for this car is to do everything with push-to-connect fittings. I believe they're going to be really good and really cool for that kind of race car feel. Leave a comment below and let me know what you guys think, because I've never used these before, so I'd really like to hear your opinion. So if you like what you saw, hit the thumbs up, leave a comment. Hope to see you again soon.